Shalom and welcome. In this series, we are taking a look at some of the spiritual aspects of Judaism. Not necessarily the obvious things like our holidays and our Torah portions, but I really wanted to explore with you some of the fundamentals of Judaism, some of the ways Judaism is built that I think give us some of the spiritual messages that Judaism really has to offer. So this month, we're going to look at the Jewish calendar. And you might think, what on earth could be spiritual about a calendar? Isn't it simply a tool for measuring time? Yes, it is. But also the way the Jewish calendar is structured tells us something, gives us a little bit of a hint about how Judaism is unique, what the values of Judaism are, and how it's meant to guide us in our lives in the everyday world, just in the simple practice of following a Jewish calendar. One of the first things that we'll notice about the Jewish calendar is that it follows the cycles of the moon instead of the cycle of the sun. The Jewish calendar is known as a lunar calendar, meaning that we mark time by the cycles of the moon, as opposed to how many other calendars are structured, with 365 days in the solar year. So why would we do that? Why would our tradition attach itself to the lunar cycle as opposed to the solar cycle? Our tradition has a strong opinion about the difference between the sun and the moon. The sun is considered a little bit flashy, a little attention-seeking, a little bit arrogant, while the moon is seen as more humble, more willing to be in the shadows, a little bit more of a quiet power. And that's why our tradition affiliates the Jewish people with the moon. Those are the characteristics that we value: humility, being able to be out of the spotlight but still have strength, and being able to operate with kind of a quiet power without being the center of the universe. Another way that the Jewish calendar is unique is that we start each day at night. As opposed to how the secular calendar is counted, where the day changes over at midnight, in the Jewish calendar, each day begins at sunset. When darkness comes, that's the beginning of the new day. Why do we do that? Because we're following exactly in God's footsteps, as God describes in the book of Genesis. The Torah tells us that God says it was night and it was morning the first day. So God marked time first by noticing nightfall and then the morning, and so we do the same thing, even as we count time in our lives today. There's one other element that I think is really interesting about the Jewish calendar, and that is that because we follow this schedule of the lunar months, in ancient times, we literally had to look at the sky to see what part of the month we were at each night. And there were lookouts who were assigned to look at the sky and to watch for the first signs, that first sliver of the new moon, so that it could be announced. There was a blowing of a shofar, and there was a transmission of that message that the new moon had begun, the new month had begun, to all the communities around the world. I really like that because it shows that the Jewish calendar keeps us in sync with the natural world. That it's not just something that we look at on a piece of paper or on our phones, but that the Jewish calendar reminds us that all of our time comes from this sense of nature and connection with how the natural universe works. So in our world today, we're fortunate. We don't have to sit outside and watch the sky every night to know what day it is, to know when the new month is starting. We don't have to hear the shofar and wait for the messengers to get to our town to tell us when the new month is beginning. The rabbis of our tradition have done all this work for us, and all we have to do is to look on a Jewish calendar or look it up on Google, and you'll see what the Jewish date is. But the spiritual message behind why we use our calendar, why we maintain our calendar, even in the face of lots of things that we do with the rest of the modern world, those really are important Jewish values, that we associate ourselves with the characteristics of the moon, of being a quiet, humble power, instead of a flashy power like the sun. That we follow in God's footsteps for how we mark time, with the night and then the day, connecting ourselves to God and creation and the Torah. And lastly, that we maintain our connection with nature, that we know that all of time functions in a cycle, and that's part of the value of the Jewish calendar and observation of time as well. All of those elements of the Jewish calendar, I think, really make it an important spiritual foundation, a fundamental pillar of how Jewish life works. So thanks everyone for watching and listening. I would love to hear your thoughts about the Jewish calendar and how we mark time, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.